Edmund, the Binding of Isaac dev. I've been following him for a long time, and you guys know I've learned a lot from this guy. Made the Binding of Isaac, has kind of gotten me into these modern roguelikes since the dawn of time with Binding of Isaac and stuff like that. But when I got better and better at design, it was easy to look back at that game because everyone wanted to be like Binding of Isaac, but here I am, you know, going against the grain. And the more I learned, the more I was like, hey guys, this is not, you know, and I know you guys want to be like Isaac, but there's a lot of not good design in there as well. And I remember when I first started the game doctor work, or even beforehand, I tried articulating these things, but I didn't have the words. So people were like, you're crazy, people like it, right? If they like it, it's good. And I was lost in that world, right? I didn't have the language to battle that, but I knew it wasn't right. Anyway, today I'm in a lot different place, and I can talk about these things a lot more successfully, right? A lot easier. And so one of the things that I always talk about, that I'm well known for talking about, is he used to be very advocate about, I'm not going to show what artifacts do in Binding of Isaac. So if you guys know, you would find Binding of Isaac and you would pick up an item and you would have to figure out what it does, right? And over time, this got very tedious and very annoying, like horribly so. And it's because of games like this, I get to learn new pillars in what makes a good game and why. That being said, so this went on for many years, and people started downloading mods to find out what the items do, because it was really annoying to memorize what came to be like thousands of items. Like, it was very annoying. It wasn't fun after a while, because what happened was the novelty of learning those items got really annoying. So at first, what happens is, and Edmund McMillan, if you ever watch this, and I doubt you will, what happens is we get stuck on a short-term positive. A short-term positive. So, of course, we have our reasons as devs. You had your reason, I'm not going to show artifacts because of a positive. I'm not going to show what artifacts do because I want exploration and mystery. I want people to figure things out and experiment. Positive, right? But what happens is that kind of design comes with a long-term negative, right? And over time, people are like, bro, can we just find out what the artifacts do? Can you just tell us in game? Can you just remind us? Can I, you know, stop having to open a wiki to learn what they do? Now I have to download a mod. You know, can we just have it in game? It would feel a lot better. Why? Because over time, that novelty of the mystery of figuring them out gets old. A lot of things that we do in development, we do for the very short term. We do it for the initial reaction, like secrets and stuff, right? It's for the initial reaction, because after that, we know what it is. So it's the same thing here, where we designed for a short-term positive, but there was a lot of long-term negative. Now, I was saying this, and I didn't have those words, but I was saying this for years, and people are like, well, I like it, it's good, this and that, get good, get good. But it has nothing to do with design. It's poor design. Why? Because we can make everybody happy, right? What if we don't show what artifacts do and we leave room for mystery? But then after the player gets to figure it out, we have their back, GYB design, we have their back, got your back, and we let them know so they don't have to memorize it, because we don't need a memory game. Binding of Isaac doesn't need to be a memory game where I need to, let me go study the next top 10 relics and then learn them and try to commit them to memory. And then not only that, you come back, you know, a month later, 2 months later, and you wanted to do a run, and you're like, God damn it, I don't remember these things. Why do we keep getting punished for that, right? Well, what if we just don't, and we get the short-term victory, but then we let them know, and we get without the long-term negatives, right? That would just be better design. Now, I want to fast forward years and years later, maybe even a decade later. Edmund ended up tweeting, he realized that it was a bad idea. He learned that it wasn't great. Now, fast forward, before he said that, if you would ask the consumers that don't understand design, they can just talk in terms of I like and I don't like. So anytime I would talk to random consumers about this and express this idea, they would say, no, I like it. You just need to get good, right? Because as long as they like it, it must be good design. It must be okay, but that doesn't exist in design, right? There is just good design, regardless of how we feel about it, whether what we like or the flavor that we like. Well, I like chocolate, so vanilla is bad. Right? No, it doesn't work like that, right? So there was a better way to design it, and that was a famous blind spot for me and my work, and I always love to teach that one, short-term positives. So he was very rigid on that, but it was a negative. So that brought me to this, Mr. Edmund McMillan, and I see another one of those blind spots, so I want to share this with you. And will you be coachable, and will you understand this? It doesn't matter. But the point is that I can try and I still want to teach people. So we see here, I saw this beautiful tweet. What's one small change that you could make to Mewgenics that you believe would ruin it completely? And he said, letting you name cats. Something as simple as naming a character. Now, we've all played Darkest Dungeon and XCOM, and we love to name our characters. We love to name our characters, right? Now, this sounds like another one of those short-term positives that he doesn't want to budge on. He has his vision. He's very rigid, right? Somebody said, hey, can you clarify the reasoning? And then somebody else said, I would assume it's because he wants people to experience the wacky names the game comes up with and that he provided, blah, blah, blah. So I started digging deeper. I'm like, oh no, it's another one of his blind spots, right? Why would he commit so hard to that? It's a short-term positive, and what I've learned from him is he picks short-term positives when there's ways to have it all. We always commit when there's ways to have it all. Right? And we do this a lot. We do this with dark meta. We do this with all these things. I see it almost every day, right? So let's go back here. He then retweets again. There are for a few reasons. You will grow tired of naming your cats within a few hours. Well, that could be true, but it doesn't substitute the players that want to do it, or the broadcasters, the content creators, or anybody that wants to do it, or when they want to do it. You said they will grow tired, but does that mean they have to do it all the time? Now, if they were tired, wouldn't they just not do it? And that's why the game does it, so then you're winning? So it's almost like we didn't have to force the design that you wanted to begin with, if this were true. Let's keep going. You will name them BS shit. Bullshit shit, like ST812 or Bob11111. Okay. So what's wrong here? So if the player that is enjoying your game would enjoy naming them like ST812 or Bob111, something is now wrong with that. They're not allowed to have that kind of fun in your game that's always about poop and now cats getting it on, but somehow crossing the line is Bob111. That's where you cross the line. That's it. Something doesn't add up here. Right? That's crossing the line for Edmund, is you naming the cats you want to name. Now, I don't know if you've ever played any of his games before, played Binding of Isaac. There's a lot of nasty and weird stuff in there. But for some reason, people wanting to name their cats in a game about cat breeding and all this stuff, which again, looks awesome, by the way, drawing the line at them naming it dumb stuff. Something does not add up. Holy blind spot, Batman. Let's keep going. The randomly chosen names give character to the generated cats. More than you would imagine. They had a lot of charm and humor. We didn't come up with the names, you guys did. Interesting. So you'll let players come up with the names, and as long as you decide, Mr. McMillan, that it's okay, you'll allow it. But if they want to name their cats when they pick up the game, that's unacceptable. Now, I also want to agree and back you up here that I'm sure that you put a lot of thought into giving the characters names and that it gives them a lot of character. I get that part, but one doesn't substitute the other. Just like the last blind spot with Binding of Isaac and not naming your artifacts, there's ways to have it all. Now, if I was a designer and I wanted to design ahead of the market, and I was really, really committed on making them land the experience of having a name that you could not pick and you wanted to become iconic, there's a way to have it all. What if they did have to play with the character names that they were given, but then unlock the ability to rename them later or after they beat the game, because then the player gets to decide? Would that be too far-fetched? Now, if I recall correctly, even some of the most iconic characters in the video game history, one of the most iconic characters in video game history could have been renamed in the game. Pokemon, anyone? Anybody else grow up with Pokemon and pick up Pikachu and Bulbasaur and you were able to rename them? So what's going on here? This screams blind spot to me, because you're saying it has a lot of character and you want them to be known by their name. Well, Pokemon, every kid knows Pikachu, but you could still rename it in the game. So if your names were really that good, players would keep it and they would still learn your cats. You don't need to force this. Holy blind spot. And if you were still committed to it, there's still ways to have it all. Now, I don't have skin in the game. I don't really care. It is a little annoying because I'm sure players or viewers would appreciate it content creator wise, but that's just my world. A lot of people and most people are not going to be playing the game and creating content. They're just going to be playing. But I want to speak for them and say all the time that I have plenty of community that likes playing these games and naming their characters. It helps them remember them. Maybe it helps them kind of get more attached to their characters, whatever it may be. So this was screaming blind spot to me, and I just wanted to share that here we go again. Here it comes. And then I remember reading a comment where somebody said, well, can you just leave it to the player or at least give them the option? I mean, at least give us the option would be nice, says this person, right? Here we go. And here we go, showing Cult of the Lamb, a random consumer trying to get Edmund out of his blind spot and showing, hey, you can still come up with a name and you could still even have us randomize it or we name it and everyone still wins. Because your first argument was players would get tired of doing this after a couple hours anyway. Well, if they did, a well-designed game wouldn't make us name a character anyway, so we would not do it if we didn't want to do it or we were tired of doing it. So every point that you make and you're so committed to having your names and then you just straight up respond no when people are actually trying to help you out because you have your own vision and blind spot that you're stuck in. And I saw this happen back with Binding of Isaac many years ago, and then years later you came to your senses. I just want to let you know that a lot of times you do get stuck in your ways when it's a short-term positive because you're stuck in that small box there. Now, again, I want to preface this with that you're a very talented designer and you make amazing games, but we all have our own blind spots. Everybody does. We all do. I'm just letting you know this is very, very silly.